Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 3 of Spot the Pro, the series where we gamify screenwriting all in the name of learning and maybe, just maybe, giving an up and coming writer a boost along the way. With me is series regular Joe Marino. He's a repped writer with an indie movie in production who has undertaken the task of moderating for us today. Playing for the home team is our other series regular, Jason Gruich, who is a produced WJ screenwriter with a number of sales under his belt and a certain joie de vivre. I'm Nathan Graham Davis, and I wrote the movie Aftermath, which is coming out later this year. And today I'm going to be joining Jason. Playing for the away team is Kristy Lowrey. Kristy has written on many shows. Along the way, she's risen through the ranks of television and has last served as a supervising producer on Quantum Leap. In the last episode, we featured the first page of a script that she wrote right before she became a professional, and that script earned her a bunch of jobs, so that is definitely worth watching if you haven't already seen it. Joining Kristy's team is Martin Aguilera. Martin is repped at Gersh and also by Nick Light of Bright Light Content, who also happens to be Jason's manager. Martin's written on a number of things on assignment and has also written recently an episode for The Craving on Netflix. Just like Kristy, he was kind enough to offer up a page for us last week. So once again, definitely check out that episode. So here's how this whole thing works. Joe has lined up 4 sets of 2 pages. In a second, he's going to read those out loud as we show them on screen. One's going to be the first page from a professional script. The other will be a first page from a not yet professional. Our teams have one job. We have to guess the pro page and then explain why we picked it. The team that gets the most right gets bragging rights. There are stakes to this, though. If a team picks the amateur page instead of a pro, both members of that team have agreed to read the first 10 pages of that script and give the writer private feedback. This happened both in the first episode and in the second episode, so the chances of this are definitely real. And as always, this is not a scientific process, but it is fun, and it's also a great way to learn, so we're all excited about it. So speaking of which, the comments in the first 2 episodes have been really awesome. So if you do a play along, definitely let us know how you did and what you learned yourself. Just do us a favor and try and focus on the positive. We're not here to shame writers. We just want to focus on what makes something great. So real quick before we begin, actually, Kristy and Martin, how much stock do you both put into the idea that you can tell professional writing right from the very first page?
You want to start, Chrissy?
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of thoughts. Nate, I think I was telling you this. I did a little bit of this experiment when I was helping a showrunner teach a master's class at a college. I kind of was getting the first pages. I was like, I'm gonna see if I can guess which scripts are the best based on it. It kind of worked, but I think in my time of reading hundreds of scripts, and I've even read for staffing, which was a very interesting process, and read for friends and pros and amateurs. I think where I stand is the first page can tell you a lot in terms of confidence, voice, tone, pacing, all those things. I don't think it can tell you whether the next 60 to 100 pages are going to be a complete story. Because I think while we can have a good voice, storytelling is this whole other complex thing. So I think the first page can tell you a lot. I don't think it's going to tell you everything, but I think what I'm always looking for up front is voice and confidence, because if I feel like I'm in good hands, I'm ready for whatever ride. If it's a little shaky, I'm ooh, I don't know. So
Sure.
That's kind of my thoughts on it.
Cool. Martin?
I think I spent a good part of last year actually doing script coverage. And so that actually, I feel really helped me to hone my ability to just sort of identify a certain kind of writing. A lot of it was by not professional writers, but some of the people that were coming through actually had produced films that had been out there and were just trying to sort of get funding for this particular program. So I feel there's definitely, after reading hundreds of scripts in a very short amount of time, I feel I could tell within 3 pages if I was going to actually pass on the script or actually recommend it. And by the time I got to the midway point of the script, I for sure understood, I knew, it sort of confirmed my initial instinct that I had from those 3 pages. Some people feel they might need 10, but honestly, within sometimes even 2 pages, I was like, okay, I know where this is going. But I think this came as a result of just endless immersion, like day in and day out doing this for a minute. So maybe before I wasn't as my skill wasn't as sharp in that regard, but I feel like it certainly became that in the past year or so.
Which is probably the case for a lot of people who are reading scripts for a living.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Cool. Well, thank you both. We're stoked to have you on. Jason and I are really excited about going up against you two. Which Joe, I think that means that you are up, and I'm going to hand the baton to you.
All right. All right. Does everybody have their pages up?
I'm ready to go.
All right. Let's do it. Exterior ocean, Navy ship, night. Rough weather, a midnight storm rages on a moonlit sea. A U.S. Navy ship bounces on towering waves like a bathtub toy, but gnarly waves are the least of everyone's concern today. Navy and Department of Defense guards are on high alert. Panicked faces and grand arm gestures indicate total chaos. Above, military choppers with searchlights battle the storm as they scan the sea below, looking for something. Earth-shattering clicking and screeching sounds, not from human or marine life, rip through everyone's eardrums. Interior Castrum Remedium Hotel montage, various. A pair of hands covered with surgical gloves carefully transports a large metal basin filled with bright red blood. An antique electric chair, complete with ankle and wrist straps, is pushed into the center of a windowless room. A long rope with a loop at its end is coiled carefully into a perfect circle by a pair of hands. Knives and lethal sharp tools are displayed in a case. A syringe sucks up the crimson liquid from the basin. End montage. Interior exterior Navy ship, night. Urgent pounding of military boots down a flight of metal stairs lead us to the underbelly of the ship, where more military personnel with massive weapons survey the area, eyes locking in on a floor-to-ceiling metal enclosure with reinforced zapping electric bars that have been completely shredded. Whatever did this had to be huge and devastatingly strong. And that something has clearly escaped during transport. A dead soldier at the foot of the ravaged cage looks like he's been chewed up, skinned alive, and spit back out. All right. And then we'll jump to page 2 and then talk about everything. So, blackness slowly gives way to muted daylight, a view of the air across unfettered skies. Fog stretches across the horizon, floating like cotton on a sea of crystal blue alcohol. Super, April 21st, 1918. The sound of a prop engine rips through the sky, heralding a coming force. A fighter plane, classified Fokker DR-1, blasts through frame and into our sightline. What a sleek machine, angular and agile. Its 3-wing configuration cuts the sky like an arrow. Quite common to the people of the day, all but the color. A red so bloody as to make a butcher wince. Chaos. As our Fokker veers 180 degrees and plows headlong into a flurry of similarly turning aircraft. Half of the ships are marked at least partially with the same sick red. The other half bear the bold circular insignias of the British Royal Air Force. Opposing planes twist and climb, scrambling for position. Machine guns clamor, spewing white-hot bullets in every direction. A British Sopwith Camel biplane banks along the perimeter of the battle, searching for an enemy to engage. Its young pilot, Lieutenant William May, spies a suitable target, a red-flecked Albatross DV, and dives upon it. As May closes in on his prey, he targets his front-mounted machine gun and opens fire. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-chink. The machine gun jams. May fusses with the gun, trying to clear the breach. No luck. He curses to himself and breaks off the engagement, dropping away from the battle and back towards friendly territory. The blood-red Fokker triplane spins back into view. Beyond it, we see Lieutenant May's biplane zooming away, easy prey. The Fokker swoops down upon the defenseless Camel like a vulture. Lieutenant May, discouraged, looks over his shoulder for one last glimpse of the frenzied battle that he is missing. His eyes grow impossibly wide with fear. May's POV as the Fokker triplane closes the distance between them.
Cool. Joe, which team is going first?
Let's go with you and Jason.
All right. I feel pretty confident. I don't know about you.
I feel confident. Yeah.
All right. Are you thinking number 2?
I am.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna just say, like, when you were reading number 1, I thought the imagery was really strong, and I was like, this is good. But I kind of already felt like it wasn't quite the pro page. Like there was good imagery, but it wasn't pulling me into the scene in the same way that page 2 did immediately, and then just kept doing. I mean, so first of all, the prose right up in the first paragraph, like I've never seen someone describe something like fog as floating cotton on a sea of crystal blue alcohol, but that was such a distinct image that made me feel like I was there. And then it just kind of, the scene had an energy to it. The values of it changed. We got introduced to our character in an interesting way, and interesting, or immediately put him into trouble. I mean, and it pulled me in more and more and more. So Jason, any additional comments on that? Or
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. The first page was very solid. I mean, we're getting a creature feature here. I love how most people don't even throw a montage on that first page, but
actually, I did think that was kind of a cool confidence thing, I will say.
Very interesting. And it wasn't just a bunch of things. It was like things that, you associate with danger or death or whatever. And right into that page, we're getting a creature feature. And it's a very standard looking, I guess you could say, first page. But the second one, like you said, that first paragraph, I mean, he could have just said, it's daylight, there's fog, we're in the ocean. But he went the extra mile, or she did, whoever wrote this, and that crystal blue alcohol. One thing I will say is the style, like you said, the values change. That's a pro move, because I mean, that's somebody that's pushing through a standard, description can only be 2 lines or this or that. And this is just, I mean, there's some lots of text here, but everything keeps flowing. There's breaks in the chunks. And the other thing that I will add is he could have just said, the sound of a prop engine rips through the sky, a fighter plane, a Fokker, DR-1.
I know what you're going to say now.
He could have said a plane whips through the air. That would have been fine, but he went the extra mile. The specificity on this page makes it feel like it's life experience, and is very well researched. So it gives that feeling that this person knows what he's talking about, whether it's well researched or he's familiar with all this stuff, in his life. But that's why I think it's the second page.
Cool. All right, we're gonna hand it off to the away team. I think we're pretty confident. Hopefully, we're right.
Yeah, we'll see.
Martin, I'm curious. I'll be honest. I think this was the hardest set of pages for me. But I may be a contrarian.
We got to jump in here and say that it was my fault. I did not communicate to Kristy and Martin that we don't review these pages ahead of time. So they didn't chat about them beforehand, but they did review them beforehand. So now Jason and I are up against people who've already seen and read these pages and formed opinions. So this will be an interesting experiment. But anyway, keep going. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear what you're going to say first, and also I think you read more than I do, because I might be wrong on this one. So what do you think?
So I would have to say that I think the professional writer is the second one, and the reason that I am going with that one is because there was something about the first set of pages, the first page, the first set, that one. Sorry,
take your time. Take your time.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, so the first page didn't have the tonal consistency for me that the second page had. And there was something about, I think, the use of language in the first page that sort of didn't gel entirely together. It's very visual, very evocative, but there was something about the flow of the language of the second page that completely just took me, and just really kind of solidified that for me. And I think also that specificity of detail is really the one that kind of made it, I don't know, it's just something about that felt like this is somebody who's maybe been at this a little longer. And that's really how I, landed in my choice.
Sure. I mean, I could have flipped a coin and gone either way. So let me just tell you what I like about A1, because it's clear that everyone thinks A2, but like there's a simplicity to it that I like, that like, here's clear imagery, here's the scene. Also, I love the pacing of it. I do agree with a little bit of like, there could be a little more language fluff in there, but I also think those things can get in the way. I also think this montage is a little bold, but I love how they did, they focused on, like, even if you look at every single little dash, there's a word that is capitalized. So we're looking at hands, we're looking at electric chair, we're looking at rope, we're looking at knives. Like, it's a great visual, very clear to me. It feels like someone who has done this before. Even I even wrote down the sound, like going down the flight of metal stairs, like you can just hear that instantly. We've all been like a stairwell. So yeah. A2, I agree, like the language of it feels very pro. Where I tripped up a little bit is I actually was thrown by, I had to go back and reread parts of it. I was a little disoriented, and maybe that's part of it, because you're being thrown into the middle of a flight battle. Maybe you're supposed to be a little disoriented, but I actually had a slight trouble following, like, where is the plane versus all this? And so I always feel like when I have to go reread something, I'm like, ooh. And it's interesting, everyone says that top line, because I wrote a question again. We got to study it a little bit more. That's because funny. I'm like, we're in blackness, so is it dark? But it's like, oh wait, but then there's like muted daylight, so are we in daylight? But then there's fog, and wait, is the blue the sea or the sky? So there was part of it, I was like, it threw me off. I was like, oh, is this someone who's like great with their language, but they're letting their writing getting in the way of storytelling? So that's my hiccup. But I'm happy to be a contrarian, but I'm also like, I feel like I should go with the consensus here. So I'm happy to go with A2, but there are things I like about both for sure.
Yeah, no, agreed. They were both very well written. But yeah, definitely. I gotta say, my instincts tell me to lean with A2.
You read more than I do, so your instincts. Like I said, I could have went either way on this one. So like, I don't think I can lose either way. So let's go A2.
I will say, like, A1, there's nothing about that page that would have kept me from turning to page 2, right? Like, it was still quite good writing, and like I absolutely would have read the second page.
And I'll say, I got, like you said, it's a creature feature. Like you get that set up, and I'm like, I know when I'm going to, and I assume I'm going into a war movie on A2, but it could just be the start of something else, a love story. I don't know, So yeah, they're both good. It's tough.
Cool. All right, let's hear it, Joe.
Well, before we do that, I want to just say why I picked these two pages.
Oh, okay, go for
it. So I loved how both of these were throwing you in the middle of the action and going, keep up, I'm not slowing down. I really liked that. And I don't think enough writers do that, because they don't trust themselves to spend the craft energy to actually do that. It's better to start at 1 and build them up to 100. And these are starting at 20 and being like, 1 through 19. I don't need to hold your hand. Keep up. So I really like that. I love for the first page how it's dealing with the creature feature cinematic language, because it feels like you're focusing on a very small thing, and you're just slowly widening until you realize, okay, a creature has escaped. So I absolutely loved it. And it's all complete. It's a complete mini story in one page. So I love that. And then for, as you said, just the sheer power of language on page 2, and in ways that are breaking the rules, but is doing it so confidently that you want to go with it. So I really liked both of these pages a lot. So, all right. Okay. So you are all correct. A2 is the pro page. That would be Timothy Talbot's Our Brave and Chivalrous Foe.
Tim Talbot. He's a bud.
Nice.
An awesome writer. Also won the Waldo Award at Sundance for the Stanford Prison Experiment.
Yep. Tim is a writer-producer who wrote the Stanford Prison Experiment, as well as episodes of Chicago Fire, Shooter, Medium, and South Park.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I would like that on my resume. That's
right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Very nice resume.
Did the amateur writer say that they wanted to have their name put out there no matter what?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. So page 1 was written by Isabella Bodnar.
And awesome. I recognize that name. Yeah.
That is her script. Castra Remedium.
Nice going.
And Born in Hungary and raised by a single mom, Isabella loved putting on comedy acts and telling spooky stories as a child. She was a gymnast, a dancer, and studied acting in New York City. After moving to LA, she formed a sketch comedy group, wrote sitcom pilots for hire, and worked as a writer's assistant for an A-list producer.
Cool.
Nice.
Okay.
Awesome. Good first set, Joe. All right. Let's do the next one.
Okay. Fade in, exterior road day. Sunrise. A single road cuts through farmland like a scar. Kaleidoscope colors swirl just above the horizon, and the air over the asphalt shimmers in the heat. On the side of the road, a sign, "Welcome to Lazarus," in large, friendly letters. Below the greeting, it continues, "Come for the," but the sentiment remains unfinished, eaten away by rust. On the shoulder of the road is a burnt-out husk of a 70s era Chevrolet Impala. Its frame worn and faded like bones bleached by the unrelenting sun. From out of the brush, a coyote lopes onto the road. Sniff, sniff. It edges closer. Its nose brushes the door handle. Sniff. Its panting is rhythmic, pulsing. A hand shoots up from the back seat of the vehicle and grasps the door where the side window used to be. Spooked, the coyote scurries off the road, and we move above the car. On the torn and faded back seat, visible through a rusted hole in the roof, a man struggles to pull himself upright. We move back to the street. With a groan, he pushes the car door open. The slow, grinding creek shoots out across the empty countryside. Jacob Wells, late 30s, an 8 o'clock shadow and an undershirt that was white at some point, squints out into the daylight, his eyes tighter than a rattlesnake's asshole. What the fuck am I doing here?
Cool.
All right. Next page. Images of violence and unrest from the news cameras, cell phone cameras, CCTV. Different formats and resolution, 720, 1080, 4K, cutting between them, changing channels, looting and riots in the streets of London, Paris, Moscow, Beijing, civilians set on by riot police soldiers, store shelves empty, picked clean, knocked over, shops, cars, apartment buildings, all on fire as violence rages everywhere. Grim-faced world leaders make statements. War, Russian BM-21s fire salvos of grad rockets over a battlefield. The sound deafening as the world comes apart at the seams. Smash 2, exterior field, New Zealand day. Brilliant blue sky, wide open space, feels like a million miles away from what we just witnessed. Only sound is a farmer spearing hay with a pitchfork. The farmer sighs, takes a break, wipes the sweat from his brow as a Bombardier Global 8000 bizjet roars directly overhead. Low and loud, landing gear descends. The belly of the jet passes above the farmer, disappears below a tree line on the far side of the field in a shimmer of jet exhaust. Exterior private airport moments later. Tires bark on contact with the runway as the private jet touches down.
Wow.
Very
Cool.
good.
You guys are up.
Is that us? Okay. I think it's B1, Martin, but what do you think?
You know, I was gonna say I think it's B2 until
interesting.
What stopped me as I was listening to the page, I was like, there's an economy here in the first one of basically there's an economy of language in which we build up to the introduction of the character in the first one. In the second one, we're setting the stage for the film, and yet there's that image of the farmer, and to me that feels like I don't know if the farmer is going to be a main character, and it seems like it cuts away from the farmer, that it's just an image, but whoever this person was spent too much time in that arena. So I was like, oh, okay, I don't know that that's a choice that like a pro writer would make necessarily. But this is very difficult because they're both so good. They just, I'm basically just sort of like latching onto a technicality. So
Interesting.
I'm going to go with you for the first one.
I was going to say, this is the one I was thought I was the most confident about. So I was actually a little thrown that you
that's
said
interesting.
B2.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe B1 is definitely like my wheelhouse of things I like. So there's that. But I will say, like, you're going to hear me say this a lot, but like simple, set the scene, clear imagery. Like I know right away what I'm seeing. I'm seeing farmland. I'm seeing, what looks like a derelict town, a husk of a burnt out car, a guy, he's either, I'm guessing, been through hell. He's probably about to go through more, but like, I just love some of the word choices, Coyote Lopes, husk of a Impala. I will say B2 did have a familiarity to it that's not in a bad way. Like we've seen every kind of like, again, I don't know if this is a zombie movie. I don't know if it's like there's a virus. Oh, something's happened to the world, right? So I think that there's a universality to that imagery. There was just a couple things in there that I thought like maybe weren't needed. Like even when it talked about the different formats, 720, 1080, 4K, I think at a glance when we're watching that, like we're not even going to know, right? That's just almost like added stuff we don't know. So I'm pretty all in on B1 for this, but that will be why. Curious what the other team.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I definitely I started the other way, but yeah, I ended up with you too. So B1.
Cool. Jason, you want to go first or you want me to?
I'll go first.
Okay.
B2 is what I think. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's B1. This is going to be hard. Okay.
well, here's like Martin was saying, it's kind of coming down to like really little baby clues for me. I love that first page. That first page is so good. Like, and what's really fascinating about all these pages so far is they've all kind of started with a setting instead. Like, I always find it fascinating when somebody starts at the setting and describing and putting that world building element, which is kind of a character of itself. And like pages like these two, they're clearly going to be considered more of a character than just some random town. Like these worlds matter, and the writer wants you to get a sense of them. All that to say, the first page, the economy is fantastic. The little mini slugs, I love that. Like I use that same stuff. I just love it. It makes everything just move and flow and transition very well. And the second page for me, there's just something a little bit more to the second page. I mean, the first line we get is images of violence and unrest, and it's going into that setting. And again, all these pages, there's no dialogue on these pages yet, which is really cool. Like,
yeah, that is a good point.
You don't need dialogue, but I mean, it's just really fun to see like a really confident. All these pages so far are confident in their ability to describe the worlds they're building. But the second page, I don't know. It's specific. It feels more deliberate in a way, and it pulls. It's an apocalyptic thing, and I've really got a good sense of that. My gut says B2 for sure.
Cool. So I liked B2, and so when we read B1, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is the one. B2 comes up, and for like the first third of that page, I'm like, shit, now I have no idea. I will say when we kind of got to
say one more. When you're done, I'm gonna say one more thing.
Okay. When we got to the farmer, for similar reasons to Martin, that character did not pull me in. It was an interesting image, but I didn't feel hooked by it. With B1, I felt hooked twice. So I will say, like the first couple of paragraphs, I wasn't sure about. Good imagery, but things that I've seen written before. I've seen cuts through something like a scar. I've seen kaleidoscope colors. I've seen asphalt shimmering. But then we get to the sign, and it says "Come for the," and then the sentiment remains unfinished, eaten away by the rust. That's really good writing, and it makes me want to know what comes after it. It makes me want to know more about this place. And then the character also hooked me. I wanted to know more about this character based on what unfolded on that page. B2 didn't do that for me in the same way. It described what we were seeing really well. I thought the writing was really quite good. Enough that I was not sure what I was going to pick until we got through the rest of it. But for me, it didn't hook me in the same way. So, but I'm willing to play rock, paper, scissors on this if we need to. So
all right. Yeah, the last thing I was going to say is both, like, this is really, really tough for both of these, and it's almost a coin flip. And I agree with everything that all of you have said. But the thing that kind of and it's very superficial. But the thing that really made me kind of lean just a bit to B2 is the fade in on the first page. Unless it's an older script, like most pros don't write fade in.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
And I love like you don't need fade in. You really don't. It doesn't hurt. Nobody's going to throw your script away if you have it. It's fine.
I like it, but like,
yeah,
Well,
I like
we
it
know
too.
you like breathe in.
yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I like
breathe in. Yeah.
I like fade in too. It to me, it's the same thing as like at the end. Like I just like the like, okay, we're getting ready for a story, settle in. Like, but like at the same time, like you're right. A lot of new writers, like in prose, don't use it at all. So
because that very well could be the pro script. I'm not saying it's something that kind of like at the end of all of my deciding and gut reaction, I was like, fade in. I don't know. Maybe that's the amateur page, or the not quite pro page. But anyway, that's why I lean to B2. You want to rock, paper, scissors?
I do. All right.
All right.
All right. Ready? We doing just one? Okay.
Yeah.
Ready?
Go ahead.
What?
We can't do this. I have
This
to laugh.
sucks.
There might be a coin somewhere if I can just figure out where to look.
This is definitely how Hollywood works right here. This is the
Right.
gatekeepers.
Exactly.
We have to make a decision by the end of the day. What are we doing? So
Yes.
I'm letting Jason call it. This is ridiculous.
Heads.
All right. Tails.
All right, we're going B1. I'll let you
All
have
right.
the next one.
All right. And very quickly, I'll just say that. Jason actually picked up why I wanted these two to go head to head, because the last two were silent, but didn't have dialogue. But I wanted them head to head for different reasons. This one, though, these two, I wanted specifically because there was no dialogue, and they were going head to head they are starting at one, and they're just slowly building up this completely new version of whatever this world's going to be, and just how they decide to do that in a, I think, both very professional way. These aren't stories that are just like, Jack and Jill sit at a table. We're getting some good startup shit here. All right.
Great choices.
All right. So now we're all saying B1. So we might all be reading somebody's pages.
All right. So the pro script is B2.
Oh, we're all reading. Okay.
All right. The pro.
Jason, I will concede that your instincts were better than mine were. But I mean they were both really good.
That was tough. It was a close.
Do not feel bad. Do not feel bad. The writer of the script you chose is Brad M. Johnson.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
And his script, Welcome to Lazarus. So
he got wrapped like in the week after you chose this script, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
So when I read these two, it was a really hard, even me knowing what they were, I'm like, these are so, so the professionalism is just insanely good. The other script was Eric Tipton's The Retreat. Awesome. So very quickly on both of these writers, Brad M. Johnson is currently repped with People Store Literary. He is a writer and filmmaker based in the Pacific Northwest, specializing in genre stories about broken people, redemption, and the power of family. His scripts have been recognized by The Final Draft, The Blacklist, the Walt Disney Company, and MGM. And then Eric is a WGA member for the last 28 years. He has sold multiple spec features and developed multiple one-hour pilots for various studios and networks. His produced work includes Valiant One, which is going to be released next year, and Mixed Signals, which he co-directed in 1997.
Awesome.
Wow. That's cool. Fantastic.
Sweet.
Good pages. So those are both good picks too. Cool.
Right.
Okay, so we're all reading Brad. And also I saw on Twitter in the last few days that he just signed with somebody. So congrats to Brad too. That's really exciting for him. So
hell yeah to Brad.
Yeah.
And by the way, I should mention that we've recently decided we're going to include repped writers who we're just going to use the Nichols qualification, because I think that makes a lot of sense for where to draw the line. So if you've made more than $25,000 as a screenwriter, we would not consider you an amateur. Like we would probably consider your page a pro page. And if it's less than that, then we'll keep it in the amateur crowd. That's just an easier way to draw the line. Otherwise there's too much gray area. Cool. All right. Moving on to C.
All right. Space. The Earth spins, the glowing atmosphere radiating. Narrator voiceover. It's March 21st, 2029, National French Bread Day. Zoom in to North America. A SpaceX-type rocket shoots by on its way out of orbit. 2 satellites launch with textbook precision to boost Talk and Go's North American 10G reception. As we plummet, a city below becomes defined as exterior Seattle day. Speeding by the Space Needle, violently veering west, passing automated billboards, driverless cars, drones, walking dogs. Narrator voiceover. There is a 10% chance of rainfall in the greater Seattle area, and the temperature is 68 degrees. We hang a left where the sidewalk is uneven and a row of arts and crafts style houses fold into dilapidated apartments. And here we stop in front of an apartment with a broken gate hinge, right where a Denver Yum food delivery bot tries to pass a fallen tree branch on the sidewalk. Narrator voiceover. Everything is perfect. Deliver Yum bot. Error, error, error. Wham. A ceramic ballerina clocks the bot, knocking it over. From the open second-story window of an apartment, Blythe Peterson, 28, watches with haggard eyes as the bot spins its wheels feebly, its lit cigarette gripped between curled fingers. And Blythe Peterson, narrator voiceover, and Blythe Peterson is going to kill herself.
Okay, cool.
All right. Page 2. Exterior Japanese temple day. A dented lucky cat tea tin with golden eyes slowly rolls on its side across a brick walkway. Thump, thump, thump. A bloody hand grasps at the tin, fingers grazing it just out of reach. The tin, now smeared with blood, wobbles and accelerates toward the steps at the edge of the courtyard. Kiyoshi, 42, a Japanese monk in a blood-stained bright yellow shawl, groans as he drags himself over the bricks. His other arm covers multiple gashes in his midsection. The entire courtyard is littered with dead and dying monks, the beautifully manicured garden soiled with limbs and blood. Stairs leading to the temple. A fractured terracotta vessel at the base. Water seeps from the cracks. The liquid flows to a body on the ground, this one dressed differently, in a black robe with no shawl. A live wire sparks on the ground, hanging from a strand of flickering lights above. It dances around the body's feet with a psst. The body is revealed to be another monk. This one is blackened to a crisp, eyes bulging from their sockets. In his mangled burnt hand is a samurai sword, smeared with crimson blood. Title, Sendai Japan. Is one of those things. Should have looked it up.
Just go with it.
Yeah. Sendai, Japan, 1988. A swarm of tactical police burst into the courtyard, pistols drawn. A gun-ho cop spots Kiyoshi. He sprints over, fire in his eyes. Don't move. Please stop the tin. The tin hits the steps with a clink and picks up speed. Shut up. The gung-ho cop drops a knee on Kiyoshi's back.
All right, I'll take the lead on this one since you took the last one. I think it's 2. I was kind of back and forth on it. I really like the hook at the end of 1 with that voiceover. And by the way, opening with voiceover is not something you see done well unless it's done by really good writers, because that can be really hard and like kind of just taxing to read, but this was very good. 2 had certain things about it that just kind of elevated it for me and make me think it's the pro. 1 is just the fact that we're like following around this like, you know, Lucky Cat tea tin. Like that's just unique and it's different. And like clearly it's super important. And so that's interesting. And that's a good hook. Another thing though, that kind of just, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is the way it unfolds on the page is like, this one dressed differently in a black robe with no shawl, right? So like that, it's just drawing your attention to something different that should catch your attention visually on the screen and like continue to hook you and engage you further, right? As a viewer and as a reader. And like those 2 things are 2 of the things on this page that stood out for me and make me think that 2 is the pro. But Jason, if you disagree with me, you get to overrule me this time.
No, I think it's number 2 too. Number 2 as well. what I love about number 2 is that there's so much intrigue. It's not just your random, aftermath of a samurai or ninja battle or whatever it is. We're starting on this 10, which is like, this MacGuffin type object. And then, but he builds on it, a bloody hand grabs it. Then we're kind of pulling back to see the full aftermath of whatever just happened. And then you introduce the character on the first page, and then it goes down. And then when the cops show up, and the cop's worried about getting him in custody, he's worried about the 10. He or she is worried about the 10. So this guy's begging the cop who's got him at gunpoint to stop the 10. I want to know what in the hell is in the 10 and how it's going to affect the story. Anyway, I thought page 2 was super cool. It's just really pulled me in and engaged me, and I would be leaning forward to turn to that page.
Yeah.
To say about 1, I love page 1 and how they just fly in with the camera. The camera moves.
Agreed.
Like you said, the voiceover's fine. Really dug the camera moves whipping past like violently veering west into Seattle. It's just really giving you that nauseating sense of like a setting. And it's a strong page. I think page 2 was just more engaging for me, and my gut says page 2 for those reasons.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what I was saying too. So like when I said like the dented Lucky Cat T10, like the way that it's used, like we haven't seen that before. Well, we also haven't, like there's things on page 1 that we haven't seen before too, right? But like what makes this interesting for me is like we know what a T10 looks like, or we have some, like it's an everyday object that is being treated in a way that tells us instantly there is something very meaningful about this and you'd better pay attention. That is what I haven't seen before, and that's what pulls me in. With that,
very,
I think
very
we're on the same page.
writing.
And I'll hand it off to the away team.
No, Martin, I was going to say go. Clearly, I don't think I've been right yet, so I want to hear what you say. I think I changed my mind hearing it again. So,
I mean, that happened to me last time. I think I have to go with the second one. I think both do just this incredible job of getting us into this sort of frenetic and chaotic moment in the lives of these characters. There's something obviously very dark and humorous about one. The other one builds on the suspense in a different way. But again, for me, it's just, obviously films are visual, and the way that language is used to present these sort of very specific details like the dent in the tin, or just, the different color of the character's outfit. It's just such a small, specific detail, and just it changes everything in the second one. So I don't know. I think that for me is the one that just seems to have the most degree of confidence in the way that it's presenting itself. And it just lays everything out in such a unique way. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with 2 on this one, but I will say initially, here's what I thought maybe 1 at one point in time. So I'll tell you what I like about 1. I think, like Jason said, like the camera, the like swooping in, and like you can very clearly see like the opening of a movie. Mm-hmm. I wrote that the pacing was bouncy. I think that like just when you read it, it feels like everything's happening at the right time, at the right moment. So there's great pacing to it, which I think is, indicative of, either someone who writes a lot, reads a lot, and knows what they're doing. And also tone. Like you get to that last line, you almost kind of get like there's the funny moment with the robot. Like there's a kind of a comedic tone. I don't know exactly what the movie is going to be, but like I feel like I've seen things in that genre, so I think all those are great. And hearing Joe read 2 again, though, what struck me, and I don't know if this is intentional, but I picked up on a little bit of misdirection in terms of like, because at first I think when you read Monk, which I'll say the Tin Cat's a great opening, which probably should have told me probably like a time period. But like when I saw Monk, I was like, what century are we in? And then you're like, there's a lot where I was like, oh, well, there's electricity. And then like, oh, now it's the 80s and there's cops. So like, again, I don't know if that was intentional, but sometimes as writers, we are trying to manipulate the reader. And I think those are higher skill level things that sometimes amateurs maybe don't think about doing. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with 2 as well on this.
All right.
All right. Everybody
Yeah.
locked in on their choices?
Yeah.
Okay. So before this, the reason I also wanted to do page 2 in this was the fact that I, like Kristy, was like, oh, I'm reading a traditional old time samurai story, and then cops show up. Boom, 1988. I was like, that is awesome. That is undeniably awesome. And then for page 1, same reasons you said, just this beautifully clear, strange other world that I genuinely want to know more about. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is just Blade Runner again. This feels like it's its own little world that I'm like, oh, I would like to know more details about it. And I do think it ends on that great, ending on that.
And Blythe Peterson is
going to kill herself.
It's such a good
Phenomenal.
way to end the first page. Like, I mean, 100%. I'm continuing to read on that. Like,
that's what we talked about last time too. Is trying your best to figure, like, try to hook the
get
reader.
that button. Get that button.
Yeah, and that did it very well because it was just boom. Okay,
All right. So, the proscript was C1.
Oh, all right.
Nice.
So the
cool.
script you chose is Daryl McGregor's Leonard.
Okay, I don't know who Daryl is. I don't think. Cool. That's awesome. I'm actually excited to read this. I mean, I think it was really good
first
writing.
page. Yeah.
Daryl has placed in the Nickel, AFF, Page, Launchpad, and Screencraft with multiple scripts. His stories explore resilient outsiders in complex worlds while also finding humor in the absurdities of everyday life. The proscript is Kay Tuxford's Hex.
Oh, we know Kay. All right, cool.
Yeah, Kay.
Awesome.
Kay is the writer of The Miseducation of Bindu, executive produced by the Duplass brothers, currently on Peacock and Tubi. She is a 2-time Nickel semifinalist, a script pipeline TV winner.
Okay, awesome. So Kay is a really good writer too, and has done a lot of really cool things. So I'm not surprised at all that was a great page as well.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm actually really excited to read these 10 pages from Daryl here. I think it was a great start. So good job to both writers. So
funny little aside here, Daryl's page was the first page I picked up for reading the 100 scripts I did.
No kidding.
The
really?
first batch.
The first one?
The very first one, I was like, oh, hello there. You're going to be used. And then it just didn't quite fit for the grouping of that first episode. So I was like, cool. I am 100%. It was just so good. And I'm very excited you all liked it as well. And Kay's writing is just phenomenal. So, All right. Ready for the last one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Over Black, we hear the opening bars of Metallica's Nothing Else Matters. Suddenly, a pair of doors swing open, bringing us towards the light and into a wide open loft. An event coordinator on a wireless headset floats through the beautifully decorated room until he stops to inspect a plate. Through the reflection, we catch a glimpse of a gigantic floral arrangement approaching. We follow the flowers to a table where a hand comes into frame and plucks a tiny rose. Rick voiceover. There's an old saying that goes, "Donde hay amor, hay dolor." Pardon my Spanish. Loosely translated, it means where there's love, there's pain. The hand leads us to a multi-tiered cake as its baker places the rose next to a line of teardrop crystal candies. We match to a teardrop crystal earring being fixed to an ear. I never really understood it until I did. Why didn't you reveal 2 Latino women, Margarita, 30s, and Abuela Maria, 60s, beaming as they attend to the special girl in a lush white robe? We push into the robe and pull out to reveal the white collar of a priest who looks over notes. Yeah, we know this world. This is the preparation of a wedding. But then we quickly cut to some odd stuff. A pair of high heels being placed under a glass case. An old doll being seated on a tufted pillow. An embellished tiara placed atop the cake. Pimply-faced boys in tuxes waltzing with each other. Rick voiceover. Until I found myself smack dab in the middle of an epic, heartbreaking, life-changing, perfectly pedicured feet slipping into sparkly slippers as we tilt up the big white dress to find a young teenage girl. What the fuck? Is this a child bride? Nope, it's a quinceañera. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
Cool.
All right. Final page.
Final page.
Interior speeding car night. Rain pours down on the windshield, blurring the city lights as the car speeds through the dark streets. The man at the wheel glances nervously in the rearview mirror, his knuckles white as he grips the steering wheel. In the back seat, a young girl clings to a stuffed bumblebee, her eyes wide with fear. Young girl, Daddy, what's happening? Man, it's going to be okay, sweetheart. Just hold on tight. The sound of the sirens growing closer and closer. His eyes bounce around, searching for an escape route. He speeds through intersections, narrowly avoiding collisions as he weaves through traffic. Exterior abandoned warehouse, night. The car screeches to a stop in front of this abandoned warehouse. The man throws open the door and grabs the young girl's hand, pulling her out. He looks at the sky. We have to go now. He leads her towards the entrance, but suddenly stops as the sound of helicopter rotors grow louder. He looks back, his face carved with nervousness. Stay close to me no matter what happens. His breath is heavy as he glances around, still scanning for a way out. They rush inside just as searchlights from the helicopters sweep over the area. Exterior woods, continuous. They burst out of the back door of the warehouse and into a dense forest. Rain-soaked leaves and branches slap against them as they run. The sound of barking dogs and distant shouts fill the air, spurring them on.
Awesome.
Wow.
I think it's 1, but I also don't trust myself now. So that was what I initially thought. But I want to hear what you have, and we can get into why we think that. But what did you think?
So I think it's 1 as well. Again, it's just there's a very interesting specificity about it. For those who are reading along, there are 2 formatting errors on the page of page 2, the second page, and I don't know. I just feel like as somebody like I don't know that's something that it could have been like a final draft error or something. But I feel like those would have been caught by somebody who would have read their page. I don't know. That's just that kind of was like, huh. And the writing is so wonderful, and that's so for me. I don't know. There's just something about the writing that's it's very. I don't know. It's just there's a familiarity to it. I feel like there's something here where I can't necessarily pinpoint if it's like a pastiche of something or if it's trying to become like its own part of a genre. Does that make sense? Or am I kind of reading that wrong?
You're saying that on 2 or on 1?
Yeah. No, for the second one. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I didn't even catch the formatting thing, which makes me think. But
This is by the way, this is just an occupational hazard of somebody who's just constantly reading scripts.
To me, that would have been me trying to like fit as much on the 1 page possibly when I enter these things. I'll tell you what I like about 2, and I think there's a familiarity, and I think I said this on another page, but like, speeding car, rain, father-daughter stuff. I like that. It's like they're running from someone to somewhere. Like there's a sense of urgency about it, which is like a great thing to kind of like be thrown into. I was a little suspect of like, they don't have names. So I'm like, are they even the main characters? It's just a young girl. Even she says dad, but he's still man. So I'm like, I don't even know if these are the people I'm going along on a ride for. Do they die on the next page? I don't know. But I guess I'm, still intrigued about what happens. So, one, I kind of like highlighted that very first box about the opening on Black and the Metallica line. And I just wrote energy. There's just like an immediate, like, whether you even know that Metallica song or even just know Metallica, you're just like, what the opening sounds like. And you're like, boom, in it, the voiceover, and I'm not crazy about voiceover, but once done right, it just feels like, again, it keeps up with the energy. Oh, this is what's happening. This is who I am. This is what's going on. Flow, pacing. I think all that narration gives you a tone. So I just see a lot in 1 that I just feels like that's someone who's confident on the page, knows what type of movie they're writing, and they're about to take you through that story. 2, you could go either way potentially. Again, that movie could turn into like the greatest action movie thereafter. I'm not sure about it on page 1 yet. So
that is exactly for me. That is exactly, I think, the reason why it just threw me off. And again, the fact that they're not named, it made me think like, are we about to actually get into a film in this genre, or are we going to go in another direction? And using Metallica as Nothing Else Matters. I mean, you're so constantly discouraged from needle dropping, and to do that right at the beginning, I'm like, oh, you're someone who knows that you're about to take me on a ride,
Yeah,
and you have the guts to do that. And so, anyway, that was really specific.
That's a long way of saying, I guess, we're page 1.
All right, Jason,
Yes.
you're up.
I say page 1 too.
Yeah, same.
Right, like even after I read the first page and before I got to the second page, I just felt like I'm in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing. I'm in the hands of somebody who's writing what they know, as we hear, like their life experience. If they don't have life experience with this type of opening page, then they've done their research. At least I feel like
Correct.
they know exactly what's going on. What I really loved is just the way this page looks, not even the description. The description's great. Everything's wonderful about this page, but like if you just scan the black and white text down, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Some people tell you not to do this with the italics, and there's several words and things that the writer wants you to look at with capitalized letters. Like
tons of capitalized stuff, which I've seen that a lot in our comments on these videos, by the way. People are surprised that the pro pages capitalize so many things, because you often see advice against that. But when it works,
Yeah.
And this is visual, right?
You'll hear both ways. Like this is also very visual, and it's very subjective. You're gonna have people that read this page and goes, "Whoa," and say, "Wait, that's way too much. That's too busy." And you're gonna have people like me who look at this page and go, "This is fun. This is stylish. The descriptions are very visual, very specific and confident." And the stuff that really gets me is like, over black, we hear Metallica, and boom, a wide open loft on its own line. That's just a shot. This is someone who's thought cinematically about what they're writing. And then when it gets down to the middle of the page, we're close on the teardrop crystal earring, and then we're widening to reveal two Latino women. Those are moves that a pro makes. Whether this is a pro or not, but that's what I say.
I totally agree.
I agree with and I agree with everything you both said, Martin and Kristy, about page 2 as well. It could be the greatest action movie we've ever seen. I don't know. It's just I was a little hung up on maybe the vagueness of what was happening, and it did feel a little familiar. The writing's good. It's smooth and clean, and it goes down. And I'm like, this is the type of script that I'm typically drawn to, like man and girl on the run. Like, I'm getting something, maybe getting an action movie, like. So, but I would go with 1.
Yeah. So I think like page 2, you could shoot that today, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Like, and
yes,
and it would work as like a genre flick or whatever, or maybe there's a whole lot more coming. I don't know, but it reads like just kind of like standard, like, kind of low budget action genre fare, which is not a knock. It's just kind of, it doesn't feel like something I've never seen before. I did notice the formatting errors that Martin pointed out too. Not that those are the biggest deal in the world, but when I'm trying to judge between 2 scripts, which is the pro, it's like, that makes me wonder, okay, is this somebody who like didn't double check it? Or is this like somebody who's so A-list that they just know they don't have to give a fuck, which is also possible. But
I was going to say it could go either way. Yeah, it could be someone who's very intentional about it.
But like, it's usually not somebody like at my level who like, people know that I'm a professional, but like I still got to have like all my I's dotted and T's crossed, right? But with page 1, totally agree. Opening with Metallica, like that's either a newbie who has no idea what they're doing, or it's somebody who's very confident. So like that confidence is a good start. When I read something like we follow the flowers to a table where a hand comes into frame and plucks a tiny rose, that is a writer who is seeing their entire screenplay. They see how this movie is going to look. They see everything.
That's vision.
It's confidence. It's vision. It's a really good sign. It's a voicey page, and it's a fun voice. That's a good sign. That doesn't tell me that it's a pro all by itself, but it makes the read pleasant. But like stuff like that, and also just like a clear, like clearly they know their world. Those are things to me that really, really tell me like this is probably the professional. And also the voiceover, once again, just like it was on the pro page for the narrator, it just kind of, it's Kay's page, just like that. Like it kind of hooks you in, like you're interested to know more about this person in this world. So yeah, anyway, that's a long way of saying I agree with everybody. I think it's this page, number 1.
All right. Anybody want to change their vote? All good? Okay.
We're good.
And as a last little moderator note, I love both of these pages a lot. I think that they're both, as has been said, the voice in page 1 is just undeniably fun. Like it reads like the kind of person that you want to hang out with, which is a really hard voice to pull off. But if you have it, you use it. And I felt that, like, it. And for me, I always worry when I see song usage in a thing, but this was so good that it was like, nope, I get why. This is, as Nate said, like, this is somebody that knows why they're using it. It's not just like, cue music here, we need to put music in. And I love how, as it was said, just the makeability and easy to visualize element of that second page, just very clear. It's not trying to break the bank. It's not trying to reinvent anything, but it's just so efficient with what it's trying to do. So yeah, I love these pages. All right. So the pro page for this was D1.
Okay.
That is Jonathan E. Stewart's.
Oh, nice. Cool.
I like job. Yeah.
I've seen him around Twitter a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his script, My Daughter's Quinceañera. No. Quinceañera.
Quinceañera for the Spanish crowd.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So, Joe,
Okay.
you say My Daughters, and Martin will finish it for you.
Please. Yes. Okay. My Daughters.
Quinceañera.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So Jonathan E. Stewart, best known for Pixar, Disney's Cars 3, as well as Smallfoot, Angry Birds 2, and 2020 Scooby-Doo reboot Scoob. He and his writing partner Eyal Padel have written screenplays for DreamWorks, Universal, Warner Brothers, Paramount, ABC, STX, Paramount Animation, Sony Animation, Fox Animation, and have served on Pixar's Brain Trust from 2013 to 2014. The other writer is on Twitter. His name is I Write Films, but his real name is Robert McBride. His script is called Prescribed Lies.
Cool.
He's a native from New Jersey. He works on his artistic focal point is in thrillers, action, and drama. He has his short film It Affects Us All landed in 3 different film festivals. He has had 3 option scripts, 2 spec sales, and a produced TV series, Love for Sale, as well as a #1 film on Tubi and Prime.
Wow.
And that's still an amateur writer?
That sounds like a pro. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, wow, that guy's done quite a bit there.
But he meets that threshold then. Got it. Okay, cool. But clearly a guy who knows his genre, and which is like, when I said like you could shoot this today, like, I mean, you could, like, it's all there. So that's great. Cool. Well, that's really good to know. So Joe, nice picks, man. Thank you for doing this. Kristy and Martin, thank you for being part of it. I just want to give a huge thank you to everybody who volunteered pages. It takes guts to do that. If you're a professional or a not yet professional who would like to offer up a page, we can't actually do this without volunteers. So definitely feel free to submit. But with that, Kristy and Martin, you have any closing thoughts, anything that like surprised you or that you feel like you learned from comparing these pages? Anything you want to share with people who are watching?
I just want to say that these writers across the board, whether they're pros or coming up, I think that everyone's on top of their game. Like they're definitely bringing it, and, to those who haven't quite hit the pro level, just keep going because you're clearly very close, so send those pages.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. And I think, I don't know, Martin, I don't know that reading gave us an edge. I think I overanalyze things. Maybe, but here's what I will say. I think this potentially newer generation of writers, and I say that like I'm old and I'm not, but like I think you can tell they read a lot and they're writing a lot and they're studying, because all of these pages are very confident and voicey. And I think there was a time 10 years ago when I was reading pages from average, so you weren't seeing that. So this made it harder because you know what it takes to get people's attention, which is exactly what you're trying to do. You're still at the stage where you want managers, agents, you're trying to sell a script, whatever that is, you're trying to get attention. Whereas, at least I can speak for myself, the ones that threw me off, the ones that seemed a little more, not even safe, but like down the middle, but like if you're having something produced, and I should know this in writing TV, like you don't have to use all the voicey, flowery stuff, because you can just go straight for like ABC is happening, because you know we're going to shoot it in 3 weeks, and you don't have to get real crazy with it. So you can just go for like exactly what it is. So that's, at least for me, what tripped me up is some of the pros were like, they were confident enough to be like, here's what it is. And they either, I don't know if some of those scripts were made, but like, they're just like, here it is. I don't need no fluff. I don't need any extra, you know. But it's good to see that like this, the writers seem to be well studied that are coming up. And so I think that's really promising for the future, in my opinion. But
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thank you both again. And to anybody who's interested in offering up a page, the link for that will be in the pinned comment below. We do have a lot of submissions for amateur pages, but it's not a first come, first serve thing, because it's largely about fit. So, you know, we are looking for exceptional pages that can really challenge the contestants, just like they did today. You also might see some themed episodes coming up, which means things like genre and other things might come into play. So if you do submit, definitely give us like at least 2-3 sentences of bio and what it is that you write, so that we can kind of figure all that out. We are aiming to do these every 3 to 4 weeks for as long as it's fun and interesting. So we'll reach out to new writers as we need pages, and just know that it might be a little bit before you hear from us. Jason's got the next one, so keep an eye out for an email from him. And I think that's it. So huge thanks once again to Kristy and Martin and everybody who submitted pages. Thanks, Mike Morin, for design work, and we will see you in the next one.